And Mr. Creighton Cochran saying the pledge. Thank you.
Would you please bow your heads? Dear Father God, we come to you this afternoon choosing a person to take Mr. Battis' seat. And Father God, we just pray, Father, that you sent the person that we need for this seat, Father. And Father God, just be with us as we make this election, that we do it all for the right reasons, Father. And Father, we thank you for this parish that we work in, that we live in, Father. Thank you for the school system in Bossier. And Father, we just ask that you just put your protective hedge around our schools as we start this new semester, that everyone's back to school now and ready to go, Father. Father God, we love you so much. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in saying the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, thank you. That covers item 1.01, covers item 1.02. We will go to item 2.01, approval of resolution declaring vacancy and schedule election to fill vacancy. This will be conducted by our attorney, Mr. John Geis. Mr. Geis?
Yes, sir. Thank you, board members. I noticed we've got a quorum here. We do have some illness, and so we'll send a prayer up for those that couldn't be with us tonight. This is not something we do all the time. We've had a couple of times over the year, and most recently in this pool. So for purposes of the audience and those out in TV land, let me just go over the process. We have two things we need to leave this building today having accomplished. The first thing we need to do, or one of the two things, is to appoint someone to temporarily serve in Mr. Bass's district until the next election is held. We have contacted the Secretary of State. They've written us a letter, and those dates for that election will be November the 5th of 2024 for the primary. It's November the 5th. And if a runoff is needed, that'll be in the general election held December the 7th of 24. The qualifying dates for this election will be July 17, 18, and 19 of 24. So, yes, sir.
Excuse me just a second. Can y'all hear us okay back there? He doesn't have a mic. Y'all are good? You know how attorneys are.
That's right.
You can hear them loud.
We
Go ahead.
love to talk quiet, so we have to say it again.
I just want to make sure they could hear you, John. Thank you.
So that's a little bit.
There we go.
All right. So again, the election will be the primary date of November the 5th. The general election, if a runoff is needed, that'll be December the 7th, and the qualifying dates of July 17, 18, and 19. Now, since there was more than 1 year left on Mr. Bass's term, we have to appoint someone, and they will serve until this election in the fall, okay? So this is a little longer period than is ordinarily the case. So that's one of the things we need to accomplish. The second thing we need to accomplish is actually appointing someone to that seat. You have a policy which is unique to Bossier that says that when a vacancy occurs, you advertise that vacancy, and you may advertise, and that's what brings us here tonight. I think the fact that you've got so many people that are interested here, it speaks highly of your population. I can't tell you how many parishes where I can tell you one within an hour of here where the poor lady who resigned, they begged her to come back and serve until they could have a special election because no one would apply. So it speaks highly of your parents and your constituents that so many people are willing to serve. And so service in this parish has never been an issue. So what I would propose, and I talked with Mr. Bachhaus before the meeting, is I would like to lay out the procedure that we'll use tonight. And if it suits your purposes, what we will do is someone would make a motion that we adopt that procedure, and if we agree to the procedure, then there'll never be, we getting at the end and say, well, wait, now, how we're going to do this? We will decide going in exactly what we're going to do. So here is what I propose to you. I propose that the candidates remain in the library and come in one at a time to be interviewed. While they're over there, they will sit their cell phones on a table so that no one can text them the questions that the people before them are being asked. So one by one, they'll come in and do their interview, 30 minutes, give or take. Now, what I have seen to work well in the past is if you would, when they come in, tell them, thank you for being here. Please introduce yourself and tell us real quickly, a couple of minutes, why you want to serve on the board. 3 minutes would be fine. But that will break the ice. That will make them more at ease. It'll make them more relaxed. And it'll give you a little bit of information about who they are. So once they do that introduction, then we can start going around the table asking questions. Now, the questions you ask are totally within your prerogative. But what we have found to work is that if you ask generally the same questions, you can compare apples to apples and compare how each person answered the same questions. At the end of the last interview, it'll become time to vote. Now, what we recommend, the procedure, is that in your folder, we have placed 2 ballots, 3 ballots. What we would do is you would pull it out and you would circle the person that you wish to serve in the seat, print your name, sign it, and pass it up to Mr. Rowland, and then we'll call those out. That is an exceedingly fair way of doing it. There doesn't have to be a motion and a second that way, so everybody is given the right and the opportunity to make their choice in private, yet we will read out everyone's vote and we will attach these ballots to the minutes. So, Mr. President, after all that's done, then I would recommend that we take things out of order and that after we've selected someone, we can then insert that name in the resolution we brought. And the very last thing we can do before we leave here tonight is, Mr. President, I move that we adopt the resolution and that so-and-so be the person. We will have already selected them. We will approve the resolution. And first thing in the morning, Mr. Rowland will send this to the Secretary of State and we'll be done. Now, there's one final thing I want to close with. The person that you elect can certainly come on up and sit with the board at any meetings. They will not be official, though, until they get their oath of office and their commission from the Secretary of State. Now, they have really sped that process up. We're not talking about a matter of weeks. We're talking about a matter of days. So they will be official when they get that, when those documents come in. So first, before we entertain a motion to adopt this procedure, are there any questions that anyone has? So,
Where are the candidates? In the library at this time?
yes, sir, they're in the library.
Okay, we'll just need to get the cell phones
Yes.
from,
We will have them set them up on the table. A lot of people get funny when you say we're going to take your
We're
cell
gonna
phone.
call them
We
in
just
in a
let them
minute.
sit. Yeah, we can just start. If you could entertain a motion to adopt the procedure that we just laid out, get that approved, and we can call the first one in and let her roll.
all right. Motion by Mr. Newman, second by Mr. Bullard. Please vote.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Mr. Rowland, while we're waiting that vote, you had a question?
Would it be possible that the new member, the selected member, could be sworn in at the January 18th?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll have plenty of time. That won't be a problem. In fact, once we get this approved, you can email this resolution to Trey at the Secretary of State. We have his email, and then you can follow up with a Federal Express of the original. We're also going to send copies of this document to the local registrar of voters and the clerk of court. So that'll take care of everything.
All right, I believe we have a motion passes. Correct, Stuart? Yes, motion passes, so
Y'all ready to roll?
let's go with it.
And I think we're going to bring them in alphabetical order.
Okay,
Oh, they did? Good deal.
thank you, Ms. Howe. All right. You want to? Okay. Ms. Poole, you'll be the first to ask a question. If you don't mind, we'll just come around to Ms. Darby, Mr. Newman, myself, Mr. Bertrand, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Bullard, and Ms. Brotherton. Y'all by yourself, Ms. Brotherton? We appreciate y'all being here tonight. Can anybody sing? We'll have a little, huh? All right, here we go. Here we are. Ms. Howell, thank you very much. Very nice to meet you. Please have a seat. Yes, ma'am, what we would like to do is give you up to 3 minutes. You don't have to use all 3 of the minutes, but to introduce yourself and have any questions that you'd like to ask. That's your 3 minutes. And afterwards, the board will start at this end and rotate around to ask you questions.
Sounds great.
Okay?
All right. Well, thank you, President Bachhaus,
Yes,
Superintendent
ma'am.
Rowland, members of the board and teachers, parents, students here and online. I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you and present myself as a candidate for this position. As much as it's an honor, I got to admit it feels a little bit awkward because there's a chair vacant right there that had a very bold personality in it for a very long time. Adam Bass has been our representative for a very long time, and he's done a great job. He has a amazing energy about him and just was an advocate for the school system. Everywhere we went, you'd see him smiling, shaking hands, and big personality. And we all know he's moved on to bigger things, and I know very well what he just got himself into, but we're really grateful for the opportunity to be here. But like I said, it is a little bit bittersweet, you know. I found myself in a process where I know each of you have been through an election process to have the seat that you have right now. And this is a little bit different because it kind of takes it from an election process to a selection process. And that feels strange in a way, doesn't it? I kind of feel like we're at the transfer portal. You know, it's like you got your team set, everybody's in motion, you're working together and everything's happening, and then all of a sudden you lose a member and you've got to look out into the community and find someone who will be able to come out along and supplement you and support you and fill that void that you have, but can hit the ground running and do things in a positive way with you. So I look forward to seeing who you select tonight. I've had the opportunity to spend some time with the other candidates back there, and I can say I think you have a great pool, and all of us have different strengths and different weaknesses, and it'll be a wonderful process to see who you select to come on board your team and do those things. As I put myself forward for this candidacy, I was reminded by people the things that are on my paper, which you can see, but that's really not what people spoke to me about. What people really spoke to me about was more of my experiences as a mom. You know, I'm an airline graduate, and I have 2 daughters who recently graduated airline. One of them was an editor at Ascalata, where she learned a lot of writing skills and editing skills, and she's now a published author, you know. I have another one who graduated as one of the first with over a 4.5 average, and she actually got her associate's degree from BPSB before she got it from airline, before she got her airline diploma, and was Parish Student of the Year. And it was just an amazing thing because of the opportunities that Bossier Parish School Board put before her with the dual enrollment process and the different things that she was able to accomplish. And then whenever you reverse back my life a little bit, I have a daughter who was so severely disabled that she was immune compromised, and then she could not even go to school. So the school came to her. And I had therapists and teachers in our home loving on her, teaching her, meeting her needs where she was. So I can honestly say I've experienced each and every end of the spectrum in terms of what's not on that paper. You guys are more than welcome to read all those things. But I think that I'm here tonight to let you see the person behind that paper. And feel free to ask any questions, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Ready? Thank you, Mr. President. thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity, Dr. Gaddy, and you alluded to Adam Bass and his personality, and this question that kind of led in great to what I'm going to ask you about, the question that I kind of want to find out your thoughts on, and that is, in what ways will you keep the lines of communication open with your constituency, as well as the administration and faculty at the schools that are in your geographical district?
Yes.
Because Mr. Bass was
he was-
pro at it.
Yeah, he was amazing at that. And I've lived alongside public life for quite some time, so I've learned really quickly that some of those negative voices that are the few can speak really, really loudly. But the way that you really hear the community is going into the community, going into the schools, going into the baseball games, the football games, into the blueback chairs, all the places that we go, and that's where you really get the feel of the community and how things are going. So I'd fully anticipate going into each school, talking to staff, talking to administrators, and really getting a feel for that. And I feel like in my history, I really have a history of collaborating amongst multiple disciplines and with schools. So I feel very comfortable in doing that. And I feel like in there, you will hear what the real problems are, but you have to be there consistently to establish a trust. And then that will open up the lines of communication, and that's where the great ideas are going to come from.
And how will you follow through with that communication to make sure that the needs of your district that you're in are met? The needs of the schools in your district are met?
Yes, ma'am. I feel like there's a chain of command set up. So I feel like if it's a situation where it needs to be addressed at a lower level and work its way up the commands, then you guide them through that process, and then you go along with feedback, and you make sure, you don't just say go here and let them go, but you would go along and guide them there and make sure that the process goes through and up the chains as it needs to be done to be managed appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poole. Ms. Darby?
Thank you, Ms. Getty, for your interest in the Bossier Parish School Board. You said earlier that you got a chance to speak to some of the ones that was in the back, so not to, for lack of word, not to my mind is going blank for a second. But not to compare yourself with them, but what make you stand out from what do you bring to the board that you think that would stand out more than what they have?
I feel like my background is relatively unique. I have a wide range of experiences with exposure to schools and the education system at different levels. So I have been a consultant with the State Department of Education on different grants. I've worked on multidisciplinary teams. I've worked in an administrative capacity. I've been a teacher, but mostly as a school psychologist. A lot of people don't realize what that is, but a school psychologist is basically you're trained as a child clinical psychologist, but then you have extra emphasis on the academics side of things and on how to work with teachers and parents together collaboratively within a school system. And I think that's instrumental to this role, my training in that area. So in that aspect, I feel like I can relate to a lot of different people. And also in my training, even though psychologist sounds like a big intimidating word to a lot of people, ultimately I'm really just a problem solver. I've been trained to look at different situations and analyze it, look at contributing factors, and then I determine what factors are relevant to the concern that you have, and you come up with a creative solution. You have a theoretical solution that would be beautiful and wonderful to implement, and then you have something that's actually applicable that you can do in real life. So I feel like the training that I have for individualizing interventions and taking situations and assessing them and listening to problems and coming up with solutions, that takes participation from listening to all stakeholders. And I have experience with that.
Well stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Ms. Gaddy. Good to see you again. And you do have some amazing daughters. I was fortunate to know the oldest one. My question is relatively simple. It is along the lines of what draws you into the public service life, and what is your draw into getting back into everything that is beholden to an elected official in that life, and specifically the school board?
I would have to say in answer to that, it is specifically the school board. I don't think that any aspect of public life outside of serving the school system would be of interest to me. I've always had a love for the school system and for the educational process. That's what I've been drawn to ever since college years. And I feel like that's where my area of expertise lends itself to be able to serve the community well. And I always consider being a public servant an honor. And this would be the one way that I feel like I would feel comfortable doing so.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Ms. Gaddy, I appreciate you being here tonight. Would you tell me your opinion of merit pay raises for teachers, linking a teacher's pay to student test scores? Would you?
I could give you an initial impression of it. I can tell you that I haven't looked at it in depth, but I do know that teachers feel a lot of pressure from a lot of mandates and a lot of things. And while I believe it's important to hold persons accountable for the job that you ask them to do, there is a delicate balance between doing that and having teachers feel so much pressure for a score that they receive on a test that they are anxiety-ridden and unable to do their job at the best of their abilities. So would I be opposed to it completely? Not necessarily. Do I think it's something you need to go, it needs to be balanced. Does that make sense, or am I?
Certainly. So test scores aren't necessarily directly to the quality of a teacher?
I think the quality of a teacher can be measured through multiple ways, including test scores. I think the test scores alone are an insufficient measure of a person's ability to teach and to reach children effectively.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Bertrand?
Again, thank you, Ms. Gaddy, for your eagerness to serve the Bossier Parish School Board and the students. What do you think the most important quality that a board member should have?
I think as a board member, you need to be a good team player. As the board for Bossier Parish Schools, you serve as one voice. So to be a good team player, you need to do your position well. You need to advocate for the people within your district, but you need to look at the overall needs of the entire district and do what is best as a whole for everyone and speak as one voice to the community.
Thank you.
Mr. Cochran?
Thank you, Ms. Gaddy, for being here. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Very, very impressive resume here, no doubt about that. Looking at some of the personal stuff, I know that young Charlotte, she is in private school, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As an advocate on a board member, if you become a board member, how do we retain our students, and how do we, and I'm not necessarily asking the question you personally and her, but anybody, because the why isn't important, but how do we as a board, if you are to come on and join us, do we retain students? Don't lose the best of our students, like a young Charlotte, to a private school.
Well, and I don't mind necessarily answering that personally, but it would take a long time. I think anytime that I do something out of character, you know that God is speaking to me. So whenever we did move Charlotte this last year to a different school, it was very out of character for Ryan and myself. We have a history of loving and supporting the Bossier Parish school system to the utmost of our ability. And it took multiple signs and multiple steps from God himself over a period of time for me to say, yes, God, I hear you in this. And the interesting thing leading up to this and thinking about that in this moment, sitting in this seat, I thought perhaps it's because I can be impartial and I won't have any bias with having a child within a school on this board. However, I will say, I believe one of the strengths of the Bossier Parish school system and what you do excellently is you do retain your students. I don't know of many districts where private schools really cannot thrive or do very well. And for the most part, Bossier Parish, they do not. Because you have a history of excellence. You have 20 of your schools that have A and B, and the rest of them are making progress for the most part. You have programs that support the best and the brightest, and the programs that support those with special needs that a lot of the private schools are not able to have. So I feel like you're doing an amazing job at that. I feel like this exception is an exception. In reality, I mean, I have 2 honor students who went through the system and did graduate through it, and they had a wonderful experience. And I tell everyone that I had a wonderful experience, and you won't hear me speak negatively about Bossier Parish schools in any light. However, I think for each person, they will make a decision for their child for what is best for their children. And I would like to be a part of this board in maintaining the excellence and the reputation that you have received, and making this a place where people move to so that their students can go to Bossier Parish schools. And that's what we've become. We've become the parish to come to, so that their students will go to schools that are known for their excellence. And that's what draws people to a community. That's what draws businesses to a community. It all really starts at the heart of the school, because we all start as parents in wanting what's best for our students and our children.
Mr. Bullard?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Dr.
Hello.
Gaddy.
Hello.
Pleasure to see you again. Cochran stole some of my thunder, but I'm gonna replow a little of the ground. Plus, I have 2 questions, actually.
Okay.
First of all, your experience in the area of K-12 education
Yes, sir.
was with a private school, from what I'm seeing. In my experience, I mean, you were
In the staffing area, yes.
and are you aware of the restrictions that a public school system must accommodate and satisfy, as opposed to a virtual lack of restrictions in a private school? Do you feel like you are capable of making that adjustment and functioning in a more restrictive environment than what your previous experience was?
So if you look at my education going further back, I was raised actually as a school psychologist according to 1508 principles, and doing evaluations within the school system as well as doing it professionally as a psychologist. So I'm very aware of the IEPs, the evaluations, the reevaluations, the entire process for that. Whereas in the private school, you really only have to concern yourself with the 504 plans, which are held much less to the fire than are the special education plans that you are held beholden to. And I'm very aware of those differences, and I've worked with those for the majority of my career as my consultant work has been predominantly with public schools. Whenever I worked at the private school, that was when, after the birth of my 3rd child, and I just kind of felt the need to take my entire family and nestle them all in and just hold them close together and really grow close to God and grow close together. And then I felt like that had served its purpose, and then I was ready to release them out to share that with the world. So that was my time there, and I worked there because my kids went to school there. But it did give me experience with some of the inside workings of a school, but I do recognize that it is significantly different than the public school system. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My second question, tonight we are going to address an appointment for an unexpired term. But then there will be an election a few months down the road. Let's assume that you were not successful in the selection process. Are you committed to seeking the office as a candidate in November? Would you run for the office as opposed to requesting to be appointed?
Correct, I understand. So I think my answer may surprise you a little bit. I feel like because this process is unique and because it is a selection process, I'm sitting before you as you are looking at the team that you have already elected into office for the majority of the term to see who will complement you and supplement you as a team member well throughout your term. And I feel like I am almost in like a jury of my peers. And if you look tonight and say one of the other capable candidates is better serving for your team, I probably will not run for that office because I'm very well aware and intimate with what running for office looks like, and it is an extreme commitment. However, if I was selected and considered to be the best person to complement this team, then I do feel like that I would run. Does that? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And I want to commend you for your honesty. I ask that question every time we're interviewing prospective board members. And I've never had one tell me they wouldn't run. Always, oh, absolutely, I am going to run. We've only had one, I think, that actually did that.
I feel like if the term was until it was an open election where every seat was up for grabs, and every seat was going to be reappointed, it would probably be a different answer. However, because the election would be in the middle of a term that you guys are in the middle of serving, I think it would be almost disrespectful to your choice tonight to put myself out there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Bullard. Ms. Brotherton, please.
Hi, Dr. Gaddy.
Hi.
Thank you for showing the interest in this job. My questions were already asked, so I'm going to go with another one. What do you see, because of the cultures changing every day around us in the country and things are happening in the school systems, what do you see as the board's greatest challenge going forward, in your opinion?
I feel like a standard answer and an ongoing answer is simply that as mandates increase and costs for everything increase, you will continue to have budget concerns, especially as you look at the sales tax potentially rolling off. But I feel like we're in good hands for who's down there representing us to try to take care of us for that. And I feel like that's a situation that you have managed as a board over the years successfully and will continue to do so to allocate those resources well. So as I think about that, I feel like the real epidemic that's coming is in mental health. I feel like my experience hands-on working with kids over the last few years, COVID has awakened us to the need of mental health within our area in a way that nothing else has before. And I believe that COVID hit during critical developmental periods of childhood for students that we have yet to see the full results of how that's going to play out throughout their educational careers and lives. I do know that as I work, I see more extreme behaviors and behavior concerns with social, emotional, and behavioral things happening with even the youngest of children. And I feel as this is going to play out over the years, and mental health is becoming a critical aspect of education where we are needing to do a lot of professional development and take care of that. And I know that Bossier Parish has been innovative over the years, and like Bipstal is a great example of thinking forward on creativity and innovation to meet the needs of every student. I feel like I could be a critical part of helping us get ahead of this mental health crisis that's coming our way. And I would love to see us continue our excellence in the aspect of working in a preventative way to support the mental health needs of our students for the majority of them to prevent this from happening, and then also to help those that are already showing concerns in these areas.
Thank you for your honesty. Really good answers. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, this concludes our interview with you. Do you have anything that you'd like to say ending your interview?
No, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the excellence that you guys have brought to Bossier Parish education. I feel like there has been a reputation associated with our district to where people know that the public schools are a safe place to go and a great place to go at all levels. And I commend you on the work that you've done as a board and the standards that you've set forward for our district. And I look forward to the opportunity to working with you if you do select me.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Howell's already gone. Good. Thank you. Welcome.
Greetings to everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What we'd like to do is give you up to 3 minutes to kind of give a statement about yourself, and then we will start with Ms. Poole and go around the board and ask you questions.
Okay.
And then we'll give you a couple seconds, minutes to give anything that you want to say afterwards.
So 3 minutes, just a little something about myself. That is a quick time frame. Just, I guess, a quick story. I'm born and raised in Shreveport. I am a proud graduate of Southwood High School in 1989. Go Cowboys. Did my undergraduate at LSU in Baton Rouge. Finished there in 93. Where I met the absolute love of my life, who married a South Louisiana girl, drug her to Bossier City. Over the course of 10 years throughout that time frame, I finished a graduate program at night and joined corporate America in 93 with the life mission of becoming a C-level executive at a $1 billion global company, and certainly was well on our way. Woke up in 2011 after having 3 children along the course of 4 moves into large metropolitan areas, and decided I had absolutely enough of that and wanted to get back to our roots. We started looking for an organization where I could be a partner, and landed back in, literally from a silver platter from God back in Shreveport, Bossier, and been here since 2012, raised 3 kids who are had the fortune of going through the Bossier school system, and literally all of those kids are now either just got married and or in college, and so we were looking for what's the next phase in life, and what else do we add to our daily time gap, and this opportunity presented itself. And had sat here before in the Horseshoe when Adam Bass was given the nod in his initial term. So at least got a little bit of experience of sitting here. But now I'm a partner in a small business, just $13 million company that we run about a $2.5 million assets in 2 buildings in Shreveport and West Monroe, with 12 vehicles and insurance paperwork and 1 minute. So I will say my skill set is definitely in the operations, administrative, financial, that side of what I think the board represents, and not so much from an academic or administrative. I don't have a family member or even know of a family member that's involved in teaching or administration in Bossier. So, close enough to time? Oh gosh, I'm going to give it. I'm going to give that to Sherry.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good.
Mr. Ross, thank you for your willingness to serve in this position. I've got a question that I want you to think about in terms of your constituency. How will you ensure that you keep lines of communication open with your constituency, as well as the administration and faculty of the schools that are in your district, to ensure that you are the advocate on this board and represent them on this board and
Sure.
their needs?
So really the question is about communication, and so throughout the course of my life, developing the skill set of being able to connect with and openly and overly communicate with people is something that I have absolutely developed. The career choice that I've gathered and participated in along the way required it. We have, 2,000 different clients a multitude of vendors, employ 21 people and their families. I am a huge advocate of electronic tools, everything from basic email and texting to all forms of social media. I am a guy who already takes potentially 50 phone calls a day, so that piece doesn't bother me for 1 second. I don't run from it, and I have an absolute skill set because I've been doing that for the last 20 years.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes. Could you give me some examples of what you might do to make sure that you're representing their voice? How would you know what their voice is?
Well, again, going back to the communication piece, I think the majority of that has to be through an electronic media.
Okay.
In from an email perspective, in text messaging perspective, just from a simple time and getting to know everyone that's in the district would take quite some time. So that more generic form of communication, again, with social media too, is got to be the way it starts.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Ms. Darby?
Mr. Ross, thank you for coming out and interviewing for the position. One question, and you talked about it a little bit, but just more direct, and if you can sum it up. Why do you want to become a Bossier Parish School Board member?
Okay. So the reason why, and to preface, and I mentioned this earlier, we are at a point in our lives where our children are essentially out of the house. I've got a daughter that got married over the Thanksgiving holidays, and she's paying taxes and lives, her and her fiance, or her husband now, I got to get used to saying that, live in Legacy. My two sons are both at LSU and Baton Rouge together, so we're quasi empty nesting. So my wife and I, over the course of the last year, had been talking about, okay, what do we want to do next now that the children activities and support and things that you do when you're raising kids, that time is freed up, and so this opportunity, I can tell you, the absolute only reason is service. I don't have any ulterior motive, long-term aspirations for some other thing that this might lead to. This school system and this city and parish were overly gracious and phenomenal to our children, and I'll never forget it. And if I got the opportunity to give some of that back to be able to help maintain what this community has already done, then that's why I'm sitting here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Darby. Mr. Newman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good to see you, Mr. Ross. Good to see you again.
Kind of to Ms. Darby, parlay off of that question for Ms. Darby, what wants you to do the school board, but give me some just high-level ideas, or not necessarily ideas, high-level items that you feel will correlate from your corporate business mindset into the board and how that could benefit us all.
Yeah, sure. Candidly, when I look at the titles of the committees and even kind of sitting here looking at your name tags, outside of the fact, and it was a question of mine, I do not know what Beef Leaf stands for. And that might be a question for you later. But so my skill set resides in things like transportation. We have half a dozen delivery trucks that include insurance and driver certifications and varying policies and that have got to be buttoned up by somebody within the operations of the company. I have a lifelong experience in finance-related issues and agendas. We run a $2.5 million receivable and inventory company. There is, like I said, 2,000 clients that we keep up with from an operations and administrative role perspective, and those, those types of skill sets, full financial reporting and budgeting and auditing perspective. Those types of skill sets again, I said this earlier, I'm
I don't come from the academic world. My usefulness, I think, long-term is going to be more in that side, in those types of activities and needs versus maybe people that were teachers or administrators in the system already.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Mr. Goss, being a parent and a citizen of Bossier Parish, you hear of issues that happen in our school system and some of them that we're facing right now. You as a parent and a constituent of this school system, how would you like to see us handle some of the issues that you think we're facing?
So back to Sherry's comment earlier, and I'm cognizant of some of the issues I think that you may be ultimately be referring to, but I think communication solves just about, or at least helps just about any problem that may exist, and so what I mean by that is, the papers kind of get to do what they want, social media kind of gets to do what they want from people that might not even be authorized to be creating the information path, or certainly not experts in what's there. And outside of things that are not under non-disclosures, I think that being able to get the word out, right or wrong, good or bad, whatever that ultimately means, so the constituency absolutely knows that, okay, they understand, they know, we know something's being addressed, and then an update along the way. I don't know how anyone could ask for more than that basic communication. Make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bertrand?
I too want to thank you for your interest to serve. What do you think the most important quality that a board member should have?
Most important quality a board member should have. This probably is applicable to almost every aspect of life, being able to connect with people. And what I mean by that is, this is a collaborative effort. I know and understand that everyone up here has to work together. The agendas are not always completely aligned with each of the districts. And in order to make this thing work for the best of Bossier Parish, the entire school system, I think being able to connect with each other, connect with administration, is probably an extremely important skill set to have.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrand. Mr. Cochran?
Thank you, President. Ms. Ross, thank you for being here. I applaud the fact that you sat there before and now you're back here again.
Yeah.
Reflecting back on that, what did you learn during the first process to bring to this day today? And maybe what were some of the expectations or thoughts of the school board versus what they are today, considering that that was a few years ago?
If I'd have known that Adam Bass was Mr. Airline High School, I don't know that I would have sat here the first time. That's a joke, by the way. So I don't pretend to come here with any preconceived notion that I'm going to be, hey, here's my 5 bullet point plan to join this board and be able to be useful in the beginning. And so candidly, and I think this is probably applicable to any candidate, being able to get here, get on the board, and then be available, be high energy, be at as many events as you possibly can be meeting the right people that you need to meet and develop those relationships with, will then steer a direction and be able to create a path to actually eventually become important. But Creighton, I'm not sitting here right now telling you that I'm I'm some guy that's going to, this board and this school system is doing pretty dadgum well without me. And so I'm here to learn as fast as possible. And again, with no agenda, and then create value in the areas that I have life experience and skill set in. So.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. Mr. Bullock?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Ross, for subjecting yourself to this process a second time. What is it? What's the old saying? First time, shame on me.
Yeah, right.
Second time, shame on you, or whatever. Seriously, a couple of questions. Number one, I don't know if you are aware of it or not, but a school board member since 2010, I believe, we have no authority in terms of personnel, save one person, and that's the superintendent. We make no decisions personnel-wise beyond that. Few little gray areas there, but for the most part, we don't. Knowing that you as a board member would be coming in and you have no authority to direct or to hire or fire or recommend promotion, whatever. Does that change your perspective, particularly based on your experience as a CEO of a company where you make all of those decisions?
So I would prefer that those decisions be left to the people who actually have that skill set. And I got to believe that that's the administration at the schools. And don't misinterpret this, I'm not trying to say I'm this terrible candidate, but I don't add or create value to that. I don't know anyone that is in Bossier City trying to get a teaching job. I don't know that I would have any comfort level whatsoever even making a phone call in those situations. So to answer your question directly, no, that doesn't change any reason on why I'm here.
And one other question, and I believe I asked you this question a few years ago. Let's assume that you are not selected, but there will be an election in a few months. Are you committed to seeking election to the position, whether you receive or do not receive the appointment for the interim term?
That's interesting wording, Glenn. Yeah, so you did ask me, but in a little bit different way. And at that point, it was if you're selected, do you intend to run? And you just added the caveat of if you're not selected. And to be candid, I think the initial response is to say, oh yeah, absolutely, I'm all in, I'm running. And that might even be the case, but I think that this role, particularly interimly, has a unique disposition of giving the guy the ability to get a couple of months in and go, okay, this is where I'm called to serve or not. And so, yeah, my impulse is to tell you, yeah, I'm ready to run. But to be extraordinarily truthful with myself and with this board, I can't tell you that that's 100% certain. I would think so. I want to serve, but we're on a mission, my wife and I, to figure out where that's going to be. And if this doesn't work out and I get selected to help, at a high level with a nonprofit or, become a deacon at St. Jude Catholic Church, that path might take me there. In 11 months, the answer then would certainly be no. If my time is filled with the next thing that God put in front of me.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Ms. Brotherton?
Nice seeing you again, Mr. Ross.
Yes, ma'am.
My question was taken, so I'm going to go to another question.
You could just run that back again.
See if you do a better job this time. No, you're doing a great job. You know, the culture's changing, the world's changing, and so we have to change also. What do you see personally as this board's biggest challenge going forward?
So, the biggest challenge coming forward, from a school system perspective, I gotta believe the ultimate intent and acceptance of potential charter schools. I would think that that would be a level of issue that's got to be faced along the way. That I'm reasonably assuming that the school board would have, direct influence in being able to create an environment where Bossier Parish school system, as opposed to any other route, is the way to go.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
ma'am.
it.
Thank you, Ms. Brotherton. Tremendous answers by everybody. Good questions. Do you wish to take some time to give a summary?
So, yeah, I think with that, again, just kind of reinforcing who I am and what I would bring is an individual with zero preconceived agenda, fully understanding that I don't know what I don't know, but absolutely committed to the process and the time and with as much speed as absolutely possible to bring myself up to speed and then really get myself ingrained in the areas of the board's activities where I hold some degree of expertise. And I candidly, and I said this the last time when I ran too, I'm sure that the other two candidates are exceptional candidates, and again, I know that Bossier Parish is going to move forward with or without me, but I was definitely happy to be able to sign up for this experience, and if selected, I will absolutely work my tail off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you, President Bachhaus and President-elect Mr. Bertrand, and obviously new Superintendent, Coach Rowland, for having me tonight.
What we'd like to do is give you up to 3 minutes to kind of give us a snapshot of yourself and anything else you want to give the board, and then we'll start with questions from this side and work our way around, and then we'll conclude with giving you a little bit of time for a summation if you would like to.
Sounds fantastic.
Okay. Mr. Bertrand, you ready?
I am. When we get to the 1 minute mark, I'll just raise my hand. Okay?
Sounds fantastic.
When you get back to 1 minute left?
Yes.
Okay. This high-tech stopwatch over here.
I like it. That's
All
my kind
right.
of gig.
Well, thank you. Go right ahead.
Like I said, thank y'all for having me. My name's Logan McConaughey. I've looked forward to this opportunity to sit in front of y'all today. The school system means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family, to say the least. My wife's a school teacher at Benton High School. I have 2 children in the system now. I have a 4th grader at Kingston Elementary, and I have a 2nd grader at Kingston Elementary. and my daughter, who's bringing up the rear to say the least, will be in kindergarten next year. And so when this opportunity came available, I just thought about, what do I want for the future of my children? But I really thought the most about what has been so positive in Bossier Parish for so many years. My parents taught in Bossier Parish my mom was a teacher at Airline for 23 years. My dad was at BPSB for 17 years, was just a teacher and coach in Bossier Parish before that. But I look at education as a pathway for a number of things. The biggest thing being that I'm not just trying to do this to make decisions for my children, but I really want the board to be in a great situation for maybe even potential my grandchildren, because I know the things going on now aren't just for today, but they're for many, many years to come. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity to potentially serve alongside a group of people that have excelled in their roles. And what I just look forward to is continuing to be a piece of that excellence as the many years go forward. And again, I just appreciate the opportunity to be in front of y'all tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Good evening, Mr. McConaughey. Thank you for your willingness to serve in this position. My question is, in what ways will you keep the lines of communication open with your constituency, as well as the schools in your district, the administration and the faculty, to make sure that you're their voice represented on this board and to meet their needs at those schools that you serve in your district?
I think I'm kind of in a unique position when it comes to certain things, when it comes to communication to people in my district at the actual schools, but also the district as a whole, being that because my wife is a school teacher, I know a lot of teachers. I also understand that my role in this is not to be the mouthpiece necessarily for an individual parent towards the school board, but making sure to direct them back to the proper channels, that those matters need to be handled at the school level first and foremost. And if things do get to or need to get to the school board office and to the school board in general, that's when I would make sure those proper channels are followed. But I think that's the biggest thing in this, is being available to people. That's what I do for a living. I work with people and understand that a lot of times when people are very frustrated, it may have very little to do with an actual school situation. But I think a lot of people want to be heard, and listening to people, trying to give them an avenue to understand who they need to talk to, giving them some guidance and direction would be my greatest manner of making sure that the right people are handling situations and knowing how I can benefit them, but also make sure that the right people are know the situation that needs to be handled.
Could you give me some examples or some strategies that you would use to keep the communication open, though, to meet their needs, like what they feel like your district that you're serving, the airline district, gets the needs that they need for their district?
Well, I think one of the things...
Particular constituency and your principals that you serve, that serve in the schools in your specific district. And I'm looking more specific at where you're serving, not the whole district.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Looking at the district lines, the interesting thing about this particular district is the two major schools in the district are going to be Legacy and W.T. Lewis. But both of those schools feed into two completely different areas of the parish. And so understanding, hey, what's the avenue we need to talk to? Who does this person need to go to next? And I think that's a part of working with a team also, because there may be some contacts that a current board member already has, because that school may fall in their specific district. And again, I go back to my dad's a basketball coach. Thankfully, sports are pretty important in our world, and understanding like this is a team effort. This is not my responsibility individually to make these things happen, but work along with the proper person to make whatever decisions necessary. And I think too, leveraging technology for me, being the age that I am, like there are a lot of ways to communicate with people. And I think making people know you're available, whether that be having someone have your phone number or reaching out to you on a social media platform, whatever that may be, and just making sure people know that like you're available to help them, you're here to listen to them, and understand that yes, it's important that the issues in our particular district need to be handled, but there are other things going on too, so we have to make sure that all things are properly handled, but again, getting those things to the appropriate person to make whatever decision needs to be made.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Poole. Ms. Darby?
Mr. McConaughey, thank you for your interest in the Bossier Parish School Board. My question is that I have a strong belief in leave no child behind, and I also believe that iron sharpens iron. Each one of us represent different districts. For example, the district that you will be serving is Legacy and
W.T. Lewis.
W.T. Lewis. And the district that I serve is Bossier High School, Russian. So with that said, sometimes some schools may not get the resources that other schools get. How would you leverage that? What would be some, what would you suggest that we do to kind of leverage that?
Well, I always have a soft spot for Bossier High School. My grandfather won state championship at Bossier High School many, many years ago. Actually saw Bossier High basketball coach the other day and told him that story. And he said, "Your grandfather was Coach McConaughey?" I was like, "Yeah, it was a long time ago." Yes, still have a little Bearcat in me, even though I never went to these schools there. But I think when it boils down to just that is, it is a decision as a whole. I think it is very important that the schools that have rapidly growing populations, obviously there's going to be situations that need to happen in those districts, but there's districts that are the pride and joy and original core of Bossier School that they can't be left behind. And those schools, those children specifically, middle school, high school, elementary, are just as valuable as any kid that goes to any other school. And I think it's a matter of, again, the board making sure that decisions being made are ones that are for the long term, and understanding that, hey, there are going to be some give and take. There's only so much that we can and cannot do financially, providing resources to. But I think being fair is something that it doesn't always happen maybe that it should, but I don't think that's always intentional either. I just think if you have open lines of communication and help people understand that, hey, those kids at Bossier High School, Bossier Elementary, need and deserve the exact same respect and resources that a kid in South Bossier needs, North Bossier needs, Plain Dealer needs. So I think that is where it's a collective effort, and I think being a mouthpiece and understanding that there will be times that decisions have to be made that are for the betterment maybe of one school today, but that's not that the next time down the road that we'll make sure and supply a school of whatever necessities they may have, short-term and long-term.
Thank you very much. Great answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darby. Mr. Newman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Mr. McCarthy. Good to see you.
Yes,
My question just revolves around what draws you to the public service life? What draws you to this? Because it oftentimes is a thankless job. You oftentimes get the complaints more than the compliments. So what's the draw?
I think my family's long-term history with the school system, I always knew I wasn't going to be a teacher or coach. Like I knew that very early on. I coach my kids' little teams, and I have to take a nap after every game on Saturday. So I couldn't do that, obviously, in other capacities. But I know the role that education plays, and not just, I know the role it played in my personal life, not just that it provided an income for my parents, and then therefore provided for me and my brother. But what it did do is it showed me that, man, I don't know if there's a more service first industry than being a teacher. And to provide those things, and yes, there will be complaints. There will be things that don't always go well. But I think, again, going back to people want to be heard, people want an avenue to do things, and being fair and honest with people and understanding that the public sector is one that I don't have any desire to do any other kind of political thing, but this is one that means something to me because I know the value that it has, not only in my personal life, but my professional life. Like, if you have a quality school system and you continue to provide that to the community as a whole, your community is going to thrive. I'm a big believer that Bossier Parish has thrived while some of our neighboring parishes maybe haven't thrived as much. And I believe has a vast majority to do with the school system. And I want to continue that excellence in any way, shape, or form I possibly can. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Mr. McConaughey, you pretty well answered my question, but I'll just kind of state it in a different way. What do you think's, of course, you have children in the system, so you get a lot of feedback. What are some of the major issues that you believe our school district is currently facing, and how would you like the district to deal with these issues?
One of the issues, yes, I do get a little feedback, not just from being the parent, but also being the wife of my wife being in the school system. I think that one of the big challenges that we do have is I get this conversation quite frequently with my wife, just being the fact that we're growing so fast that we don't even necessarily have capacity at some of our schools for any more students, and the largest classes are continuing to grow, and they're about to move into facilities that may not have the capacity to hold all those students. We were talking about that the other day with my wife at Benton High School, how that school's just grown so rapidly, and they're doing the best they can and doing an excellent job, but there's some real challenges down the line that they're gonna have to figure out. How do we house all these kids in this school, and how do we make sure we have the adequate workforce to provide the excellence of teaching and service that our school system offers? And I think part of that is short-term, part of that is short-term solutions, but I think also, like I've said, it's looking at this thing down the line and trying to project. For my specific district, I really think growth's about to be a big issue, because when the continuation of Swan Lake goes all the way to Benton High School, to Benton, Louisiana, up to the lake, you're going to see that area develop. It's not just going to be pine trees and pasture land in the matter of a few years. And so I think that's a matter of looking down the line and understanding that change is coming, and we just have to be prepared as best we possibly can. I don't think that's an answer you can figure out real quickly, but I think with a collective group of people, that's something that you can make the best decisions, both short-term and long-term.
Good answer. Thank you very much. Mr. Bertrand?
Mr. McConaughey, I too would like to thank you for your willingness to serve. What do you think is the most important quality that a board member should have?
Being a teammate. I understand that being on boards in the past, in my situation, yes, a board member has one vote, but they can't do anything by themselves. It takes a team effort. Understanding that, hey, my one vote is just as beneficial to someone as even Ms. Darby's, but understanding that I can't do anything by myself. Again, I go back to sports because that's how my life has been surrounded by, and understanding that when a team is put together, we're so much better. The sum of our parts are so much better than the cumulative whole. But as a team, we can really accomplish a lot of great things. And so that's the way I look at things, and understanding that as a team, a lot of great things can happen. But if we try to splinter and do things on our own, we won't nearly accomplish what we're capable of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrand. Mr. Cochran?
Thank you, President. Thanks for coming, Mr. McConaughey. Very well spoken. A couple questions. How old are you, sir?
35.
35 years old.
I'll
Wow.
be 36 in about a month.
35. It inspires me to see young people reaching and striving for jobs like this, and you have answered these questions very, very good. I commend your mom, Miss McConaughey. You raised a good one here. maybe if I would have paid a little more attention in her English class, I would have turned out a little bit better off.
Hey, she was my teacher too. And the hardest education I ever received was being a student of your own mother. And
Yeah.
if you ever took my mother, that red pen would break open on a document. You thought you were pretty smart until a red pen got a hold of your paperwork and you weren't nearly as intelligent as you thought you were. It's tough. Tough.
Well, I've got to hear some of your answers and very pleased with a lot of them. And again, I go back to, I really think it's important that our young people get involved right now. And I really wish that I would have done something earlier with my life and got involved earlier. Outside of your household, your parents, maybe even from social media, whatever, what inspires you at 35 years old to come sit in front of a group of us like you're doing tonight and display the confidence, the answers that you put forward? Who inspires you? What inspires you at 35 years old?
The grace of Jesus Christ. I'm a very blessed man for a lot of things, but Jesus will be at the top of that list no matter what. But I also look back to one of the things that when Ms. Darby mentioned this, I have a son that it's kind of neat. He's 8 years old, but he's been to Plantation Park Elementary, he's been to W.T. Lewis Elementary, and he's been to Kingston Elementary. And I say that because I have seen multiple aspects of the school district from his lens. I will tell anyone, and maybe I'm biased here, but the greatest education that a kid can get in this parish, if they can spend 1 year at Plantation Park Elementary, it will change their life. And the only problem is COVID cut him 2 months short. We begged for him to go back. I understand tier 1 stuff, he couldn't go back, but we wanted him to go back for 1 more year. But I go back to those are the things, and I want my life to be something that has some value. I want my children to have the best opportunities possible, and I've seen what education can do, and if that's the smallest thing that I can do is be a part of a board, then that's what I want to do for my children, both long-term, short-term, long-term, and for many, many children to come.
Thank you for your answer, and young man, I think you're going to be okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. McConaughey, for participating in this process tonight. I have 2 questions for you. They're pretty straightforward and simple. Number 1, I think I'm correct, your business is in Minden, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you feel that will in any way restrict your ability to be responsive to your constituents and to your responsibilities as a member of this board and the Bossier Parish School System?
I do not. Thankfully, I'm in year 8.5, give or take, of my business. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of flexibility when it comes to my time. We were talking about this, me and the other candidates were talking about, where my office is located, where my house is located. It takes me about 25 minutes to get from my driveway to the front of my office. I know there are some people that have to travel a lot further than that, sit in traffic. Thankfully, I miss all the construction of I-20, so I don't have to deal with some of that stuff. But I also, the same thing, sometimes have that conversation with my own customers and say, I can do a lot of things on a phone. I can really be beneficial. I can really talk through a lot of things on a phone. And so I don't see that being a problem. I do at times understand how that could look like a challenge, but I think with technology and advancements of things, I probably get as much work done in the car to and from work as I do when I'm at work. So I don't see that being an issue.
Secondly, let's assume that you are not selected tonight. There is going to be an open election for this seat in just a few months. Is your commitment such that you would seek election to the position whether you are appointed or not?
Absolutely. I strongly believe that I can be an asset to the Bossier Parish school system, and if that's what the requirement were to be, then I'm on board.
So we can look forward to seeing your name on the ballot November regardless.
Yeah, my dad just went through an election thing, so we just buried all those campaign things, so we can't use those. But if that's what we got to do, then that's what we'll do.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Bullard. Ms. Brotherton?
Hi, Logan. I just want to tell your mother, you've done well. I'm very impressed. I have a son about your age. I think he lives a couple of doors down from you.
He does.
My question was really already answered, but just going forward, what do you see as one of our biggest challenges besides the growth? What do you see?
I think one of those is going to be staffing for that growth. Again, I go back to my wife being a school teacher, and I know the challenges that exist on campuses every day. Now, let me rephrase that. I know a piece of the challenges. I'm not there every day. She asked me what they should run and stuff in basketball games, and I'm like, I'm not there every day. I can't answer that question. But what I do know is with growth comes the requirement for great teachers. And where are those teachers going to come from? I think that things are drastically changing, but I think if we continue to empower the teachers that we do have, that allows us the opportunity to recruit, retain, and continue to elevate those great teachers that we have. Because I'm a believer of this. Winners want to spend time with winners.
Exactly.
I don't want to spend time with losers, and I don't know many people that do. And so I think with the winners that we do have, we build things around how do we empower them, and it becomes very attractive to new teachers, current teachers from other districts, whatever that may be. So I think that's the biggest thing, but I think that's honestly something we can have a little bit control over also.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good, Mr. McConaughey. Would you like to take a couple of seconds or minutes to summarize for us anything?
I appreciate your time. I appreciate the work y'all have done. Again, as a parent of someone who has kids in the school system, I'm a big believer that everything rises and falls with leadership. One of those leaders was my grandfather in this parish many, many years ago. At the same token, I know that that has been continued through great superintendents, great board members, great teachers, great coaches, whatever that may be. So I just want to be a part of continuing that excellence. And so I appreciate all y'all's time here tonight.
Emotions are good. That's fine.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. We have one more, Ms. Howe?
Yes, sir, our board candidate, I reached out to her right at 5 o'clock, and she said that she decided that this was not the time that she wanted to pursue this endeavor.
Okay, so we have interviewed all candidates. All right, what I'd like to do is take about a 5-minute bathroom break real quick and give the board an opportunity to go over their notes and things, and then when we come back, we'll openly vote. Does that be all right with you, John? All right. Temporary. Thought this was going to be an easy job. I thought this was going to be an easy job. I want to tell you, we've got some fantastic people. Wish we could pick all three of them. What we're going to do is we're going to vote. We have little sheets up here. Individually, they'll vote, sign the ballot, and send it over to us, and we'll read the ballots out loud, and then we'll go from there. So at this time, board, please vote on ballot 1. Please sign it and print your name. This is for documentation in the files. When you finish, please pass them to Mr. Rowland. Mr. Rowland and Mr. Geis and I will count them, or they'll count them and I'll read them out. You two count them if you will.
Let's just read them out.
You just read it out?
Let's just read them out and we'll keep a tally.
You're the attorney, so keep me out of jail. You notice I didn't ask any questions about advanced classes. I don't know anything about advanced classes. I noticed you didn't either, Cochran. No advanced classes. First ballot, Mr. Bullard, Logan McConaughey. Second ballot, Creighton Cochran, Logan McConaughey. Third ballot, Billy Joe Brotherton, Logan McConaughey. Fourth ballot, Robert Bertrand, Logan McConaughey. Next ballot, Eric Newman, Craig Ross. Next ballot, Sherry Poole, Logan McConaughey. Next ballot, Sam Darby, Logan McConaughey. Next ballot, Kent Bachhaus, Logan McConaughey.
Members of the board, the votes read out, are they accurately your votes?
Yes.
All right, at this time, we'll file these. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Geis with the resolution. And once again, what great applicants we had. It's just a shame we have to pick one out of these great three people. I think the whole board is consensus of that. And I just appreciate y'all being in Bossier Parish and being interested in this. Mr. Geis, please.
Yes. The resolution that is mandated by our law and the Secretary of State will say, whereas due to the resignation of Adam Bass, there's a vacancy in the office, the board has the authority to fill, and in fact the directive to fill that vacancy and to call a special election. That special election, primary date is November the 5th. The general election will be December the 7th, both of this year, 2024. Qualifying will be July 17, 18, and 19. In addition to that, we have to appoint someone to serve in a temporary capacity until that election. So therefore be it resolved that Logan McConaughey, being is hereby appointed to serve as a District 5 representative of the board, and that by motion of blank and seconded by blank, which we'll fill in, and by a vote of blank, which we'll fill in, that was the vote of this board. Mr. Bachhaus, we will ask you to come by tomorrow and sign this, but what we need is a motion tonight that we approve this resolution, and that's what we're in need of.
Mr. President, I make the motion that we approve.
Motion made by Ms. Poole, seconded by Ms. Darby. Please vote. All votes counted and motion passes. Mr. Geis?
I think that concludes my business, Mr. President.
All right. All right, let me make sure we've got everything. Here it is. That position being filled, I need a motion for adjournment, please. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Bullard.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bertrand. Bossier Parish School Board is adjourned. We've already voted.
She's going to come back and pick them up.